I have to ask, how's the family life?
Do you mean the band, or do you mean my
I
actual
mean your
family?
family
Because
life.
they're both of the same nature, you know. But my family's well, thank you very much.
Did you have a new child?
We do, yeah. We have an 8-week-old boy.
8 weeks. So that's what, 3?
3. 2 girls. 3.
You had to stop the count.
I have to think about a lot of things before I say them these days. Lack
When
of sleep does that to you, you know.
well, I guess. And when was this album? When was Collider recorded?
It was recorded at the towards the end of 2010, from mid-September to the end of October.
All right. So wife is with child at that point.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. We knew what was coming.
So you have 2 kids. How old are the other kids?
4.5 and 2.
And you have another one on the way.
Mm-hmm.
And you've written an album as a father with 2 young kids, a 3rd one coming. Did that have any impact on the music?
Well, there's no way to avoid sort of having your songwriting be sort of hitched directly to your personal life in that sense, especially something as profoundly life-changing as having children. You know, just in terms of your own relationship with the world around you, with yourself, mm-hmm. with your wife, obviously. Your songwriting is bound to follow the twists and turns that it leads you through. So, absolutely. I mean, I knew right away that this record was going to sound and feel different because I felt different. It
does sound and feel different. I'll throw out some impressions, and you tell me mm-hmm. whether I'm right or wrong. Okay. Less riffage with guitars.
Right.
Brass, woodwinds, and saxophone.
Aplenty.
Female backing vocals.
Yeah, not new, but present.
Present. What else am I missing? I don't necessarily think it's more mellow than previous records.
I don't find it more mellow necessarily. I think it's sort of a bit more even tempoed in that, and it's more of a groove and rhythm oriented record than it is sort of frenetic rock songs and then swinging to more thoughtful sort of ballad-esque songs. So I think there's maybe less of the peaks and valleys, but again, I think it was always going to be more about a constant rhythmic treatment or feel behind the song.
And there's certainly a lot more acoustic guitar in it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, to my ears anyway, which is why I think this record sounds really good if you play it in an open room versus headphones. Mm-hmm. The way it was produced, the way it was mixed and mastered, with all those different instruments, well, not all those different instruments, but with those acoustic instruments, with the saxophone and the woodwinds and the acoustic guitar, it just sounds bigger than if you were to listen on earbuds or something like that.
In a strange sense, it's a testament to the fact that less is more. Because even if we did add woodwinds and percussion, we did less of the other things. There aren't 4 guitar tracks happening. There aren't we aren't doubling everything all the time. And all that, when you record in that way, you soak up a lot of the space. And you sort of eliminate the opportunities for something like woodwind.
Clutter, yeah.
Yeah, for something like woodwind to actually shine, to make its presence felt. So I think that was part of the ethos of making this record, was just to keep everything stripped to its minimum, so that you could have the things that made an impact really had room to make a statement.
So there's 2 singles right now. The one that has gone to Canada is "I Feel You." Mm-hmm. Which on the album has that long, bluesy, grinding ending, mm-hmm. which is really cool. But then in America, you went with "The Last Crusade," which is it's almost a polar opposite song in terms of the way it's constructed and performed.
Yeah, I mean, those are 2 things. I gotta say, that's not necessarily that's not in my hands. I mean, we have 2 different record labels in Canada and the U.S., mm-hmm. and they were both feeling very different things and wanted to explore different parts of the record in terms of that making that first impression. So for Canada, this was what they chose to go with, and the States, they were feeling something completely different. And I think both are valid entry points to the record, and I think both sort of open the listener up to a different view of the record. Mm-hmm. And so, as much of the music as we can put out there as possible, I'm always
who cares, as long as people are paying attention.
I'm not.
I have to ask about Tractor Beam blues. Right. Star Trek fan?
Yeah, it was a bit of a tip of the hat to the to our sci-fi roots in a way.
What? What do you mean sci-fi roots?
Me as a reader, anyway, you know, and I think I've always just been. If you look at our Chemical City record and the album cover for that, I think that was even more revealing. So this is sort of, it's always there. I don't know how it creeps in.
Okay, so I'm looking at the cover here, and I'm thinking, hey, you know, Large Hadron Super Collider, and maybe we're looking for the Higgs boson. It could be right there.
Exactly, it could be one of those little dots right in there, the God particle they call it. Right there. You know, but no, I've just always been into that take on reality.
Isn't that the?
Well, that's the thing itself. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay. So there's a physics lesson with this album as well.
Not that I'm going to give you. It's one that it would invite you to. It would invite you to explore it further on your own time.
I'm going to tell you some of the people that work at CERN in Switzerland and France. There's a whole thousands of scientists work on this super collider. They actually have they've created a bunch of bands, and there's actually an album that features the music of all these scientists that work on the Large Hadron Super Collider that they've released.
I didn't know this at all.
I swear to God.
So are we included in that? No, we're not. We don't work on it. But by default, for having used some of their images.
Well, I'm telling you right now that as soon as this gets released in Europe, it is going to be a huge hit with the particle nerds at CERN.
We are after any demographic possible, you know, over in Europe especially. So we will leave no stone left unturned. So we've got the Star Trek fans in now. We got the particle physicists, and where next? If you have any recommendations,
all right. Well,
biology,
you know,
Amazonian biologists. What have you got for us?
Good point. Back to Star Trek for a second. Kirk or Picard?
I only know Kirk, really. I never really got into Picard that much. But I do like Patrick Stewart.
Original series versus Next Generation.
Yeah, it was original for sure.
All right.
But Patrick Stewart was great in Excalibur.
Yeah. Yeah, and he's also really good on Family Guy, too.
Yeah, I haven't seen that either, no.
Oh, you have to see it. No. He's hysterical. Okay. Uhura or Beverly Crusher?
See, no, I do know Crusher just from having caught glimpses of her. I'm going to go with Crusher. I did have a bit of a thing.
Yeah, the redhead. Yeah. You know, when you get a good redhead, you got to think about that. Yep. This has nothing to do with music whatsoever, but I think what we're doing.
But it's revealing in another way. You know,
totally agree.
It tells a different story.
Look, we went from particle physics and the search for the Higgs boson to whether or not we do Beverly Crusher.
I think it's nature at its sort of most fundamental on both fronts, is it not?
I would agree.
Yeah.
I would absolutely agree. I suppose I should ask another serious question. So you went to Chicago to do this record with a guy that worked with Gomez, and who else did he work with?
Modest Mouse.
Modest Mouse.
Caliphone, Iron and Wine.
Brian Deck.
Deck.
Right. So he, obviously fresh ears, right? What impact, I always like asking this question, what impact did this producer have on these raw songs that were imported from Montreal?
It's hard to understate how much influence he had on them, because he really, what he heard at first seemed to get him excited, and he came back and he said, I really like this, I'd love to work with you on this record. And you know, he said all the right things, patted me on the back and said, yeah, great songs and song construction and all that. And then as soon as we were in his hands, so to speak, and we'd agreed to make the record with him, he basically annihilated everything, broke it down, and sort of remade them in a sense.
What did he take out?
A lot. Again, a lot of the clutter, a lot of the sort of the whole idea of going in there and overly multi-tracking something, trying to zero in on the essence of the song, and that's easier said than done, especially when you're in the recording studio. I think the impulse is hard to resist to over embellish, to add more bells and whistles, and sort of again maybe remove the listener from where the song.
When you got a giant Pro Tools rig and 72 tracks to play with, the natural inclination is to use those 72 tracks.
It's hard to just say, okay, well, actually, we're only going to use this much.
Yeah.
And if we can't establish a song's, you know, what a song is trying to say with this much, then this isn't going to help. We're actually getting further away from where we need to be. And I think that was a really valuable lesson for us as a band and for me as a songwriter. I know going into writing our next record that I'll take a lot of those lessons to heart, just in terms of not throwing everything at
This is why you need an outside producer. Somebody to tell you no,
Yes.
or you can do better, do it again.
Exactly. And that's a tough pill for a band to swallow.
Sure.
You know, especially when you've worked hard on a record, you've worked hard on the songs, you're very close to them, you're very protective of them. You think you know better than, you know, the next person. And in some ways you do to a point, and yet you always hit that wall at which you're out of ideas, and that's the point at which you have to be open to somebody else coming in and saying, you know what, if we came at it from this angle, and this may involve going back and completely rethinking the whole thing, but if we came at it from this angle, we could get past this point, we could get to here.
Right.
And you, as a musician, that's a scary moment, but it's also exhilarating.
Well, you're putting your art into somebody else's
Yeah.
hands.
And that's frightening.
Yeah.
But ultimately, and hopefully, it's rewarding.
Last question. The big change on the cover of this album, besides the, oh, there it is, the Higgs boson. It's the Sam Roberts Band. First time in 4 records that you are a band as opposed to a single individual entity. Why the change?
I think it's just a more honest reflection of how we operate as a musical outfit.
Well, you've been working with these guys for a while.
We've been together for a long time, and on stage, I think the people who've come to see us play have seen that we operate as a band. It's not just a sort of spotlight on me with a guy standing 12 paces back. And more with every record, that translates to the studio work as well. So I think, you know, at first, to be honest, when you get an opportunity, especially in the music business, you don't want to do anything to jeopardize it. So when this happened, I was basically working on my own. I was writing on my own. The previous band, of whom several of the guys were members, had disbanded, broken up, and of course that's when things happen. That's when the song takes off. We couldn't have scripted it worse, really. You know, after all those years of trying, and then all of a sudden I'm by myself.
And this is back to the first EP, right?
This is back to the first EP.
Yeah.
So then, you know, I'm going by Sam Roberts, and that's when things happen. And the last thing you're going to do at that point is to jeopardize that opportunity by switching things up.
So it's a slow evolution to this point.
Yeah, it's strange, but I mean, it feels like it's always been that way, and I think it's just time to step forward and acknowledge that that's how this music gets made.
Fascinating. All right, well, good luck with the record. I would imagine
Thank
that you're
you.
going to spend the rest of the year plugging the hell out of it.
Yeah.
Any big tours? Any big road trips?
Well, we start in the States. We're going down to Washington, D.C. to start our tour in a few days from now, and then the East Coast, West Coast, come back up to hit the Sasquatch Festival out in Washington State, which is a pretty spectacular spot to play music, and then play a few festivals across Canada, and then come back and do a national tour in the fall. Hopefully see the folks out.
Well, hopefully we'll see you out here a couple of times, and we'll have a chance to talk. Best of luck. It's been a
Thanks
pleasure.
for having me.
Thanks.
Explore Music wears English Laundry apparel.